Valerie Olson. So good to see you.
It's good to be here, Connor.
What's going on in your world?
Oh, many exciting things. Always learning new things from the wonderful medical doctors I've had classes with who continue to write newsletters
Sure.
and teach all about what I call functional or integrative medicine. It's all exciting.
So, what is it that you do? So, you do a lot of research, you do a lot of learning. What do you do with that information?
Well, I would say I'm acting as a wellness coach and educator to pass on what I've learned so that people can benefit and take this information and use it to make changes in their lives to improve their health. Some of them to reverse disease.
Hmm.
I've seen that happen. So, mostly it's about finding out what we need to do to give the body what it needs to optimize healing and to increase our level of health, to attain a higher level of health, which can happen with all of us.
Hmm.
You know, the same things, the same steps need to be taken no matter what it is we're dealing with. If it's just fatigue, if it's, some more serious issue like type 2 diabetes, we need to address the same things. And, that's what these doctors focus on, rebalancing the body, providing the nutrients that may be missing from our food supply, which is incredibly devitalized now. And so we can no longer get what we need in our food, and we need to supplement, even if we eat a really good diet, and try to eat as much organic as we can to avoid the pesticides and herbicides. So all of them, all of these doctors, David Perlmutter, neurologist, David Brownstein, family practice doc in holistic medicine in the Detroit area, Kelly Brogan, psychiatrist, it goes on, and they've all found that the same things work to help their patients heal, which is exciting because many times they come after trying so hard to get well and seeing many other health professionals and really not seeing improvement. And then when other issues are addressed, then they begin to feel well and the body starts to heal. And,
Right,
and that's exciting, you
right.
know.
So, why do you do what you do as a wellness coach?
Well, I was not well until I was about 45, and it took a medical doctor who was really listening to find out that I had an autoimmune thyroid condition that had not been found by any other doctors. In fact, I had been told multiple times that my thyroid was just fine, it was normal. And I knew it wasn't because I did a lot of reading and I knew I had multiple symptoms. And she actually was my children's doctor and listened to me one day and said, let me do some other testing and see what I find. And then as a result of that, she called me and said, "My, you have a raging autoimmune thyroid condition." And, at first I thought, really? And but it was good to know something was really wrong. She said, "You really did have an issue with your thyroid. You do. And let's do this and this and this." And she put me on a med, told me to stay off of gluten and dairy foods, take some of the nutrients I was missing, and it just changed my life. I mean, I
Hmm.
went from tired every day when I woke up to feeling incredibly well, taking care of a family, and my youngest was 4 at the time. And I often thought, I would love to have felt this well for the last 30 years, but it wasn't found out until, I was 45. So I think when that happens, I was really hungry to learn everything I could. I went to classes. I went to classes with some amazing MDs. Dietrich Klinghardt, he's just a genius German trained MD who is now in London, England, but he comes once a month to Seattle to see patients. So many MDs who have stepped out of the box and keep learning and keep seeking to learn what they need to learn to help their patients get well. That's their goal. If the patient isn't getting well, what am I missing? They
Right.
ask the questions. They keep on keeping on. And the stories they write about in their books, like David Brownstein, which anyone can go and read his blog, drbrownstein.com. But he's written 15, I think his 16th book is coming out now. And he always says, I never was a writer. My wife, my wife kind of, edits my books, but I'm really just telling the stories of my patients. When they come, what they present with, what happens when we address certain things. And so his books are about his patients.
Just like prior to that, you didn't really have a medical background.
No, no, I did not. No, prior to that, I was actually in the field of music, and then after this, I just started going to all these symposiums where you'd have 20 or 30 doctors each teaching on their area of expertise, and I just was soaking it up like a sponge. It was
Right.
so interesting. It was so it was really exciting to hear all this and wonder how many people would benefit from this and this and this. And so then I went and got my training in meridian stress assessment and got my certification and my advanced certification. But the best part of the learning was with the doctors who use this technology in their practices and then continued to teach other doctors. And, I was usually in the minority. A few of us would be non-MDs, and that was okay. I just wanted to learn what I could learn, and that
And
was, it was exciting to hear them talk about how their patients' issues improved, reversed, whatever. Now we have a growing body of doctors who are doing functional medicine. We have Mark Hyman, who's authored several bestsellers, and we have Kelly Brogan, like I said, in the field of psychiatry, and she has found that when she uses the same simple steps of teaching, good eating, supplementing with the nutrients like vitamin D3 that everybody is missing unless you live in a sunny climate and you're actually outside without sunblock. Here in the UP, we are always low in that if we don't supplement.
even in the summer.
So even in the summer, you have to use it up here. I've seen people's levels drop 30 points if they don't use it in the summer, thinking, oh, I'm out in my garden all summer. But here's Kelly Brogan as a psychiatrist saying, I rarely need to use medications when I address these other things, when I balance hormones, when I get the thyroid functioning normally, and I get the nutrients in like vitamin D. She said, the body heals, the brain starts working normally again. You have to think of what's causing this. I like how Dr. Brownstein says, my patients do not have an antidepressant deficiency. They have something that's causing the problem. It's my job to figure out what it is. Sometimes I need to use meds temporarily, knowing that ultimately they're not solving the problem. I need to figure out what is the issue.
Yep. Identify the
So,
root.
and the root cause, yeah. And he will often say that looking for the underlying cause is really critical, and yet he will openly say that is not what I was taught in medical school. But when I do that is when I see the most response, the most positive effects. And it's usually the same things again and again. They're missing certain nutrients, the thyroid issue, the thyroid function hasn't been looked at,
Taking medications.
and many medications interfere with other processes in the body. Many of them interfere with hormone balance. So when you do the same, when you look at nutrient levels, which he does, because I've been to his clinic before, and I've had many people go, and they actually evaluate all nutrient levels to see where are you and what are you needing that you're not getting in your food, and looking at hormone levels and supplementing with whatever hormones are needed in the safe form instead of the form that there's a safe form for all of them now. We have them, and so
So this all these ideas and all of this learning has kind of manifested what you do here in Marquette, being the wellness center in Marquette.
well, when people come, they come for coaching as to, okay, what usually they come asking, what can I do to improve my health? I'm doing this and this and this. Is there anything else I can do? And we evaluate what are they eating and what foods might be having a negative effect. Again and again, we have a very contaminated, devitalized food supply. And now more and more genetically modified foods are entering the picture, and you have to really be a savvy shopper to look at labels, to, almost all of our corn, 90 some percent of our corn, 95% is genetically modified. And
Well, Val, I don't eat corn.
yeah, well, also, the word sugar usually comes from genetically modified beets. Then we have soy, and that's nearly all genetically modified.
And just
So,
to look at the vast amount of foods, when you look at the ingredients,
mhm,
contain corn, soy, wheat,
wheat.
or sugar beets.
Yeah, and even though wheat isn't technically genetically modified, it is an altered seed. And Dr. Hyman has said again and again, I call modern wheat Frankenwheat because it's such an inflammatory food.
Yeah.
It is no longer the original wheat that we have. And it's 95% carb. It drives blood sugar levels up. It's no longer a good food. And it's been chemically altered. So
And
I,
wheat is also such a staple in our culture.
yeah, well, it has been, right. Now, sometimes in some places you can get spelt, which is ancient wheat before it was modified. And it's interesting to see the seed because I test everyone on foods when they come in, and the spelt seed is about twice as long as the wheat berry. Okay, there's a real difference. Well, wheat, modern wheat, is about a dwarf size now. Grows, it's very short, harvests very much sooner. Spelt is the original wheat,
Sure.
that we used to have. And it's interesting
More of a
how
husk.
it's much harder. It is so much higher in protein content. It's about 35% protein. When we altered the seed, we made it about 5% protein.
Yeah.
And so, we're eating all this carb. And then some people will come in and say, oh, but what I have is organic. I always eat organic. I said, it doesn't matter if you start with the wrong seed. I test them on organic wheat. It doesn't matter.
So even if it's organic,
Even,
non-GMO,
it doesn't
it's still
matter.
modified.
Well, there is no non modified wheat according to Dr. William Davis, cardiologist,
The
Mark
seed
Hyman.
is
The seed has
inherently
been altered.
changed, whether it's natural or not.
Right. Spelt, on the other hand, we can get spelt seed, we can get spelt berries here, and it's very different.
Mm.
It's not the same. Unfortunately, some of the manufacturers of the spelt products are adding wheat into the
Mm.
spelt. So, I just encourage people. There are substitutes for all of that. You can use a different bread. You can use spelt pasta. You can
What about
you
stevia?
can stevia can be a good thing if it's organic and hasn't been extracted with chemicals.
Sure.
We just have to learn about what's a safe source.
Yeah.
It can be good. It doesn't spike the blood sugar. That's good. So many of our chronic illnesses are rooted in dysinsulinism or blood sugar imbalance. The sugars are not being controlled because there's so many refined carbs in the standard American diet. So,
Right.
if we're having mac and cheese and pizza and sandwiches with two pieces of bread, we're getting all this carb, and eventually, that's why we're seeing an epidemic of type 2 diabetes in children now. They're eating these processed cereals in the morning. They're having way too many carbs, not enough protein and the good fats like olive oil and coconut oil and avocados and nuts.
Nuts. Yeah.
All those good fats are really good for stabilizing blood sugar. And fats are not the bad guy if they're good fats. I'm
No,
not
we were
talking,
told that in the
yeah,
90s, right?
right. I'm not talking,
Zero fat diet.
right. But now we have bad oils corn oil, that's not a good oil. The vegetable
Vegetable
oils have
oil.
been so highly processed.
Yeah.
So,
And that's what they fry all our foods in,
yeah,
right? If you go
right,
to a restaurant, you get something, anything that's
right,
fried, it's in vegetable oil.
right. It's hard to, you have to learn when you eat out, what can I choose that is a good food?
It's
You
rare.
get a salad with chicken on top. You can figure out what you want to get, and then notice, because what I hear from my clients is once they eliminate the foods that are,
Triggers.
that I can tell are really they're not doing well with, whether it's wheat or just a lot of sugar, they really notice a change in their energy, in how they sleep. But then they come into their follow-up appointment and say, I was doing so well, and then we went to visit family, and I had a serving of wheat, and oh my, did I ever feel it.
Yeah.
My gut wasn't feeling well, and I was really tired, and it was an exaggerated response because, the body had healed and done
It
without
had
it
come
for a
back
while.
to a homeostasis that was
Yeah,
happy and content, and then we threw another monkey wrench at it,
right. But
right?
that's good for them. I
Another
tell them,
carb bomb on the stomach.
right. And I tell them that's good. Your body's talking to you.
Mm,
Listen,
mm,
because you will know if something is not good if you pay attention.
mm-hmm.
And usually when people I know the other thing I try to tell them is, and this is something Dr. Hyman stresses in his book, sugar is more addictive than cocaine, and wheat, our modern wheat, turns into sugar very quickly, and it can be a very addictive food. And
Mm.
he said, so don't feel guilty or bad if you don't have strong willpower, to get off of this. Understand it is addictive, and then he says, give it a week or 10 days. Just get it out of the house. And after a week or 10 days, it's usually enough time to reset the body. The cravings go away. You're not thinking about it all the time. Oh my gosh, I need to have this. Just understanding that when you have some, you will want more. It's the same way with sugars.
Mm.
And so if you can get over the hump, and this is also something that this psychologist who wrote Potatoes Not Prozac, who has a treatment center in California, de Maison is her last name. I think it's Kathleen de Maison. And she said when she taught her patients how to eat, they did not relapse. When she taught them what they needed to know about eating low carbs and, you know, getting good fats and vegetables and some of the nutrients they were missing, like the B vitamins, which get all used up, especially thiamine, when we eat carbs. So, in order to feel stable and not crave alcohol or other addictive substances, they needed to stabilize the brain, and they did that when they ate according to
Sure.
what supports the body. And it was night and day difference, like she said in her book. I went from 25% success rate, which really disturbed me. That's why she took a leave to go do some research, to 90 some percent success rate, where when people had the knowledge and the skills they needed to make good choices about what they were eating, they could keep the brain chemistry very stable. And that was exciting.
That's
Imagine going from 20 some percent to 90 some percent.
that's huge.
So, and that's what Kelly Brogan has found too. She said, she's a psychiatrist. She said, I have found this with my patients too. So, the body needs the same things. Whatever health issues going on, you go back and address the same things. So, we can talk about the good foods to put in, the less packaged processed foods, sticking with several cups of veggies a day, not counting potatoes, and
Yeah. It sounds like, what you're getting at is not a fad diet, right? Because we hear this all the time. We hear paleo, we hear ketogenic, we hear these buzzwords that get people excited, but they're not sustainable. And it's really hard to decipher really what the right way to go is, because it's so variant according to what your body needs. How can people find out what their body needs?
well, listening to the response of the body to eating a particular way, almost everyone I see will tell me if they have a good amount of protein, a good amount of 2, 3 tablespoons of good fat and fiber from vegetables with their meals, they feel well. And a way to know is you should feel satisfied for several hours, 3+ hours, 3 to 4 hours, not hungry, not brain fog, good energy if you ate a meal that is going to sustain your blood sugar.
Sleeping well?
Sleeping well too,
That's a
sure.
huge sign too.
Right. And I mean, that caffeine can get in the way of that. And mostly I find that people feel their best when they limit their caffeine, their coffee to, 1 cup, maybe two a day. Otherwise, they become dehydrated and lose
Then you
minerals.
face
And
the challenges of being dehydrated, which are immense.
yeah, right, their energy can go down and all of those things. So I think if we can learn what to avoid, so we lessen the toxins coming into the body in this world where we are exposed to so many potentially in our food, things like artificial sweeteners. Wow, Dr. Perlmutter, the neurologist, wrote all about that. It's very damaging substance for the brain, and people don't know that. They think they're doing well to have a diet soda, because then they're not having sugar. But the reality is it's not safe, it's not good. And I tell people if they're trying to wean off of a soda pop issue, they can use Zevia to kind of wean off
Mm.
so they know that they're getting something fizzy and good tasting that's not going to spike their sugar or give them an artificial sweetener. So,
Kombucha could be too.
yeah. And it's mostly just to keep it simple. Eat real whole foods and get the proteins that you need. 20 grams a meal is kind of a good guideline for a moderately sized person, and a couple tablespoons of good fat at least. And then everybody's different. If you have a higher metabolism and you're working out more, the fats are great for sustaining your blood sugar. My husband
Yes.
is a long distance runner, and he has noticed night and day difference when he eats more towards the ketogenic type of eating, not strictly, but he said, he would never again carb load the night before a race. That is just, it doesn't work. You only have about an hour's worth of stored sugar in the liver. And when he's going to run for 10 hours to do an ultra, that's not the solution. He can feel so much better when he has a good meal the night before. And he's just noticed it's many misconceptions that we're now coming to understand more. Many more medical doctors are, and that's exciting, because then they're able to help their patients with all kinds of
Mm-hmm.
issues.
Mm-hmm.
Back to this diabetes, type 2 diabetes. Yes, it can be reversed. I've seen it reversed in some of my clients
That's exciting.
when they start eating differently and come in and say, I remember the husband of this one woman coming in with his wife for a follow-up and saying, as they were leaving, well, by the way, I just want you to know I don't need my diabetic med anymore. I said, really? What did you do? And he said, I just ate the way you told my wife to eat. We're doing it together. And my blood sugar is stable now. So, wow, that was exciting. And, people can tell when they feel better, they sleep better, they wake up less tired, they have energy through the day.
Mm.
That's normal. If you have you know, a, a time around 3 o'clock, 3 to 4 o'clock when you start feeling draggy, then listen to that. Is that because lunch had too much carbohydrate, not enough protein and good fat?
Or maybe
Is
just
it,
too big. When you
yeah,
eat too big, I
right,
mean, you get that rest and
yeah,
digest. Oh.
right. And really, I tell them, so expect if you have a good lunch at noon, maybe you're going to need a handful of almonds at 3 o'clock. That's okay. That's
Mm.
better than waiting until 6 and feeling your energy just plummet.
Or
Yeah.
having a cup of coffee. Almonds, a handful of almonds over a cup of coffee
Mm,
for some long-term
right,
energy.
right, right. And we need to do the same thing with our children. We need to pack them good lunches because much of the school lunch food
Sure.
is less than optimal, certainly isn't supportive of children who may be carbohydrate
Mm.
sensitive. And, I would imagine much of the lack of focus in some of these children or diagnoses of ADD, it would be real good to look at their diet, what they're having, and teach parents this is what will help them sustain learning through the morning. If they
Right.
have a breakfast,
Right.
you can make a strawberry protein smoothie. That's not hard.
But
And
it's much easier just to give them a pill, Val.
well, yeah, let's not go there.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
really,
That's the
you
solution that we're
know,
using right now.
well, it is, and we have more children on mood altering meds than any country in the world. And that's sad. That's really sad because we really don't know how they are affecting the brain. But the real issue is why don't we first address what could be causing it? The brain is, I remember one of my teachers talking about the brain being the organ most sensitive to blood sugar volatility. So if a kid has a bowl of Captain Crunch in the morning before he goes to school, full of sugar and carbs, almost no protein, no good fats, then you wonder why in an hour and a half in school, they're just ants in their pants, can't focus, behavioral issues, talking. Their brain is not functioning normally. It's not stable. It's not even. The
I
brain
don't.
needs stable blood sugar, and
Yeah.
their blood sugar has probably crashed. And when I see these kids and I coach the parents through, try this, see how they do if they have, a smoothie for breakfast or a couple scrambled eggs, or
Scrambled eggs
here's
with an
some option.
avocado,
Right, that's
right?
great. That's good. And see how they do. And they always come back and say, I can already see changes. And the other thing is things like magnesium that aren't in our food in enough supply for the body's needs, which includes 200 different functions. And I heard Dr. Carolyn Dean, who is like the guru of magnesium research in the country, I believe.
All the clients that we have come through here and they've gotten a chance to meet you call you the magnesium queen.
Well, I've just learned from Dr. Dean, and actually I've called into her program several times on Monday nights to ask questions. You can ask her, and she will talk with you. And you know, when you have 200 functions that are magnesium dependent, when the heart stores more than any other organ, when you have 1,000 different enzymes dependent on magnesium for their production, we better have a good amount, but our food supply just simply doesn't have
Mm.
enough. And I've heard other doctors, Sherry Rogers said in one of her newsletters, we need about 1,000 milligrams a day, and we hope we get maybe 200 to 300 in our food
Yeah.
if we're eating
Yeah.
really good food, like a big bowl of greens, dark greens like kale that were grown on good soil where there was magnesium in the soil. So we have an epidemic of
Where there was
magnesium.
magnesium in the soil, I think is a
Yes,
key
right.
key that you just pointed out.
Yeah, and it's just like that for iodine. We no longer have iodine in the soil. We don't live near the ocean here, and we are all pretty, for the doctors who are checking levels, like David Brownstein, when a doctor checks 6,000 patients and says 96% of them are woefully deficient in iodine, and then I listen to that because they're doing an iodine loading test. They're doing not just a simple blood test. You have to do it the right way when you're testing. And when he says that, and he said, what magic happens? Every cell in the body needs iodine. No, you can't get enough in your salt. You would never want to eat that much salt, but you also don't want to eat refined salt. If you can
Yeah.
eat unrefined sea salt, the point
The
is you
pink
have to supplement with
the pink
iodine.
stuff.
Pardon?
The
Yeah, the
pink.
pink Himalayan pink salt, Celtic sea salt, because iodine is, but you still need to supplement with iodine in order that you have enough iodine to make your thyroid hormone and enough iodine to produce adrenal hormones. And we need it for
Mm.
so many. Dr. Brownstein has taught in his classes, every cell needs it.
Mm.
Where's it going to come from? So when you listen to these doctors that are actually checking levels of nutrients, what you realize is it's a wonder that we aren't even sicker. And we are not a well nation. We are not a well nation when we rank at the bottom of the 30 westernized nations for all the health parameters like incidence of cancer, incidence of heart disease, infant mortality. We are at the bottom of the list. And we spend more than the next 10 countries combined on healthcare. So, what we're spending it on is not yielding us a healthier population. We're managing symptoms. We are not helping the body heal or address the underlying cause of whatever is going on with chronic illness. What is it that we're missing here? So we don't fare well. We don't have a good track record. We are not a healthy nation. And as Dr. Perlmutter said in his wonderful book called Grain Brain, it's a wonderful book. He said at the end, we can each make changes, little changes in our lifestyle, changes in the way we eat, supplement with the nutrients like magnesium and iodine, and of course, vitamin D3 for those of us who aren't getting sun all the time. We can make huge changes in the health of the body just by doing those things. And we each need to do those things because boy, what a gift. How do we live a life, an optimal life, a quality life if we don't feel well, you know? If we feel well, we have the energy to do whatever it is we feel called to do. And that's really important, you know?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
we're just tired and,
Just making it by.
just making it
Just
by,
getting
boy,
through it.
what kind of life is that, you know?
For yeah.
And I told you about this man, the Dr. Perlmutter, this patient of Dr. Perlmutter's who came to him with energy issues at 42, working out every day, but just not feeling well mentally, emotionally, not sleeping well. And here it was, he was checked for gluten issues and he had 19 out of 20 markers for antibodies to different parts of gluten. And when he stopped gluten, it just transformed his life.
And now
He
that's with a specific population. Most people, some people.
I don't see anybody test well on modern wheat, and that's modern organic wheat. Nobody. And is it because of the
Okay.
gluten? What Dr. Hyman says is our modern wheat contains an undigestible gluten protein. And he was as bold as to say no one is able to completely digest this gluten protein that is in modern wheat. Didn't used to be there 100 years ago. And so when we eat it, and we eat it continuously, we have it every day, we develop what he calls a leaky gut. So these undigested proteins enter the bloodstream, circulate in the body for weeks and weeks, creating inflammation. And so, his point is when we stop those inflammatory foods like wheat and refined sugar, the body has a chance to heal, the gut can heal. I think gluten isn't an issue for instance, spelt gluten is entirely different than our modern wheat gluten. They don't they don't even test the same. Spelt's gluten hasn't been altered. Wheat's has. And so when people are autoimmune, like I am with an autoimmune thyroid condition or any other autoimmune condition, those people across the board, according to, autoimmunologists like Dr. Aristo Vojani, who's brilliant and started the Cyrex lab to just do panels for people with autoimmune issues. He said, no exceptions, gluten and dairy are out for autoimmune people if they want to
Mm,
put out the fire, they want to calm down the autoimmune
mm.
issue and get well. And I know that's true because my antibodies were over 1,000 when I started, and they're in normal range now. So it's totally true you can lower the antibodies. It's not something that you have to live with for the rest of your life. So gluten is an issue for many. Wheat gluten is an issue for everyone I see, children, adults, everyone. I don't see anyone testing well on all points in the body for wheat. Spelt is another story, because it is different.
What about
So
dairy?
dairy, any of our animal foods, I try to coach my clients to please choose hormone-free dairy because we are, you know, using estrogenic hormones with the cows for dairy foods and for meat, so they put on weight faster. If you're going to have dairy, it needs to be organic or it needs to be at the very least hormone free.
Mm-hmm.
And some people don't tolerate dairy well. If they're autoimmune, they won't. And others do all right with it, especially with like the cheese and yogurt. I see much less tolerance for cow's milk than I see for a good hormone-free cheese or yogurt or kefir
Sure.
because they're cultured, they're partly digested. People seem to tolerate them better. So, if we can follow those guidelines, we can give the body a chance to rest from foods that may be causing inflammation. And people notice they feel better. They have less congestion, their asthma improves and may even go away without medications because they're avoiding mucus-forming foods,
Mm-hmm.
like dairy and wheat,
Mm-hmm.
just avoiding those. And so, they see when the body is improving. Most of the people that come are saying, "What can I do?" My desire is the fewest meds as possible, and I want medication to be the last resort. So, what can I do to get well, without the use of meds? Because, most medications have some kind of issue that they cause.
Side
And
effects.
yeah, they have their side effects, and so if we can avoid them and save them for emergency times, when really they're necessary, that's the opinion of most of the MDs that I've had as teachers. Let's address the cause and see if the body will heal, you
Hmm.
know?
And I like how you said this will give the people the opportunity to live a more full quality life. And I hear this all the time in regards to exercise, that people don't have the energy to
Right,
exercise, or they
right.
don't have the time to exercise
Hmm.
because they're filling their bodies or filling their lives with things that are not serving them.
Right.
So how would you start to address that if people are quote unquote unable to get exercise into their lifestyle?
Well, it's a matter of your priorities. Um, I love how Dr. Perlmutter wrote in his book, and he did a series, a
Mm-hmm.
documentary series called Alzheimer's: The Science of Prevention. We have an epidemic of Alzheimer's now, and he says very boldly, at least 95% of it is preventable. That's what we're seeing and exercise is such a big part of that because it's nourishing to the brain. It steps up everything in the body. It's a form of stress release. It does so many good things. And, he says it all in a much more technical way than I'm saying it. But the benefits of exercise, we were created to move. We need to move. If we, he said the key components of preventing Alzheimer's are exercise, movement, eating good food, and getting restorative sleep,
Mm.
good quality sleep, And many of my MD teachers have said, a part of that people need to be aware of is in this technological age, please limit exposure to those EMFs, those electromagnetic
Yes.
fields.
This is
We know
another.
they will say, turn your Wi Fi off at night, keep your cell phone out of the bedroom where you sleep. Get protection on your phone so when you are talking, you're not receiving all these emissions in the brain. We know that it's not safe. We know the radiation coming out of the phones isn't safe, even though the tech industry, the trillion-dollar tech industry, has done their best to make it appear as if all is safe. No, it isn't. The doctors like Dietrich Klinghardt, he's got some great talks on YouTube on EMFs. And back to the GMO issue, I would say, before I forget, that Zach Bush, triple board certified MD, has some wonderful talks on YouTube on the effects of genetically modified foods on the gut, which then affects the entire body. And he believes is greatly at the root of all of our degenerative disease, including cancer. So it's really good talks on YouTube. But if we believe that it's important, we'll make time for it. Everybody has 20 minutes a day. We can, even on Dr. Mercola's website, he has a 3-minute movement set of moves that you can do in 3 minutes. And he said if you do this morning, midday, and later in the evening, it's a nitric oxide pump, he calls it. But it's so simple to do. You don't need equipment. You don't need to go to a gym. But it steps up the lymphatic system. You will feel your circulation get moving. It's so simple. And he has it right on his website. I think the title of it is Why Strength Training is Good, but it's not about strength training. If you go down to the third video, you can watch him do the moves. It's so simple. All my people can do that. I said, you have 3 minutes. You have
Yeah.
3 minutes 3 times a day, and then you can do your walks for
Right.
20 minutes.
That's just more of a lack of discipline thing. It seems like,
Yeah,
you know, when people cannot exercise, that's a choice that they make. That's a
right.
choice that they make to, sit on the couch with a bag of chips or watch their favorite TV show instead of
Yeah,
getting after it after work. And we need that time to get after it. I mean, it's what we do. It's what
right.
we're built to do. It seems like the things that you're educating people about and giving the information is lack of knowledge. It's not a lack of discipline in all
Hmm.
circumstances.
Right.
Sometimes it's a lack of knowledge, and that's where
Sure.
we need to really address because it's not there. It's nobody's to blame,
Right.
right? It's not their
Right.
fault that
No.
they're
And
not well,
and
right?
where will we learn this? I mean, we have tried to put so much of what I've learned on our website, wellnesscentermarquette.weebly.com, under women's health, under children's health, under guidelines to optimal health, hormone questionnaires, thyroid questionnaires, and thyroid information, so that people become empowered. They become more confident to ask for certain things, to request certain tests with their doctors when they know about them, when they understand
Sure.
them. And so the goal is to educate. And this is what many of my teachers have said. It's about education, education, education. Teach our people what is it that your body needs to do to have to get well.
Right.
What is important: movement, good food,
Right.
good sleep. And then how do I go about it? How do I make good choices with food? A lot of that information is on our website too.
Right.
What nutrients do I need to supplement with because they're not in my food? And and see how your body responds. You know?
Education rather than medication.
Yeah, well, education is going to is going to give us the power we need to make better choices, you
Freedom
know?
to be a
Yeah,
sovereign, to take responsibility.
right. Right. When we're informed even about something as simple as water, most people don't understand that fluoride and chlorine are not something we want to take into the body. They interfere with certain body processes. Fluoride will bind with magnesium and prevent it from being absorbed. It blocks iodine absorption. So we need to filter those out of our water. We should not be drinking water with fluoride and chlorine. So if we clean up the water that we're drinking, then the nutrients can get in that we need to help the body heal. So I know it would be a good assumption to think the water that we have is good water, but we need to know that there's not fluoride and chlorine so that we're getting, or even the pharmaceuticals. I know that's another issue.
Mm.
Some of the filters, like the ones from Clean Water Revival, actually talk about removing all of the pharmaceuticals that enter the water supply because we're taking so many medications. So, you know, I think the important thing to realize is our bodies are being bombarded from so many directions, from with
Exposure.
electromagnetic fields, with contaminants in our food, with herbicides and pesticides on our food supply, and chemicals in our food supply. So we need to have enough knowledge that we can take steps to avoid bombarding the body with all of these
Mm-hmm.
toxins. And there are many ways we can do this. We can avoid a lot of it. We can avoid cleaners in the home that are toxic. There are plenty of options for green cleaners. You can find them online through Swanson Vitamins, through Thrive Market, clean laundry products and cleaners that don't contain chemicals, even insecticides. There are safe ones. We can use essential oils. We don't need to use toxic substances that we will then breathe in that come into the body and give our body one more thing to clear. Our body was designed to detox and to heal, but we can only bombard it with so much. And the less we give it to do, the higher our level of health will be, the greater our energy will be, the more we will be able to live a quality life and enjoy life. That's what I want.
I hear you. I hear you, Val, and it's quite a mission. It's and at times I'm sure it gets to be a huge task at hand. How do you do it for yourself?
um, you know, I feel like seeing people respond and come back and say, "Oh, my energy is better. I know I'm doing better. My headaches are better." I've had people come and say, "My migraines are almost gone. My body pain is totally gone from fibromyalgia that I was diagnosed with just by something as simple as adding, a liquid magnesium that's well absorbed." That's really exciting because they might have dealt with these issues for years.
Mm-hmm.
And
So it's the small battles that keep you
yeah,
going.
yeah, well, I think it's seeing people enjoy life again. That's pretty rewarding.
Mm.
It's very rewarding, when people can come back and say they've noticed changes, their energy is good, all those things. I once was one of those people, who didn't have energy, who
Mm-hmm.
who was exhausted until I was about 45. So I know how important it is to feel well when you wake up in the morning, and I want my people to know, your body's communicating with you. It's not normal to be tired when you wake up in the morning. We were designed to have energy through the day. If we don't, what can we do to improve it? What are we missing here?
Mm.
How's the diet? How are the nutrients coming in? How is sleep? How is your stress management? That's a big thing, not holding on to work stress, getting a good walk or bike ride or something that will help with stress release through exercise. All those little pieces of the puzzle that we fit together because we were created to have a quality life. I believe that. And we just need to figure out in this modern world with so many things bombarding our bodies, how can we avoid them? How can we make choices that keep the body well?
That sounds pretty awesome. That sounds like a worthy task.
Yeah, it's
It's
very
worth
rewarding.
doing.
You talked about knowledge, and we have a really extensive lending library, and I have books by most of the medical doctors I've had classes with, and the ones that I would say are practicing holistic, integrative, functional medicine, whatever you want to call it. And even for a client to borrow a book, and maybe I only, sticking out one chapter that I want them to read, they are so empowered to read a book by a doctor who has found certain ways to help patients with their issues. And so I, I like seeing them feel empowered with knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
to know the more that you know, the more that you can say,
Well,
this is
it's
what I
right,
want,
and it's the knowledge that's going to set us free,
Right?
right?
That's
And the
right.
implementation of that knowledge, it's interesting to see so many people stuck in a paradigm. I
Yeah.
communicate with my parents and people of older age than myself, right? 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 people, they get stuck in a pattern of life. They believe that something is true and they are unwilling to see something be uncovered that is new, that proves their past truth to be incorrect.
Mm.
So how have you, I mean, you experienced it firsthand, which was, seems like a powerful wake up call, but how can you have you seen that in your work, having older clientele tell you, I've been eating bread my whole life. Why are you going to tell me that's wrong?
Or I can't imagine not having wheat in my life.
Yeah,
I mean,
all that.
and
Or
sometimes
alcohol.
I'll,
I'm not an alcoholic. I don't drink,
yeah,
to get drunk, but I don't see a problem with having a little bit of alcohol. And,
yeah,
you see
and there
these
isn't for
things.
people that can handle it. I've tried to share websites, and I have a few recipes on my website to say here's an alternative bread that's super simple, or you could find for those who are gluten intolerant, you could find a gluten-free bread. There is a substitute for everything you would like to eat in a healthier form. Everything. I had to figure this out with my 93-year-old mom
Yeah.
who died recently, because we discovered that she did have a crazy raging autoimmune thyroid issue. And so we discontinued the gluten and the dairy. So we figured out how to make her apple pies and her biscottis and her Greek cookies because she was Greek. All the things that she loved, but with different flour so that it wouldn't exacerbate
Yeah.
her condition. And, and she did so well, and she got to be home until she passed. And without pain and sleeping well, and the only medication she was on was her thyroid. And I used to tell her, Mom, You're eating good food. Your caregivers are making you the food that is good for your body, and you're taking your nutrients. We had her on her supplements, her iodine, vitamin D, all those things, all put in a smoothie for her. And I said, you get to be home watching your bird feeder at 93 years old, and you're not in a nursing home, which is what you told me you didn't want, and you're doing well,
Mm.
and you still have quality in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, boy, that was precious,
Mm-hmm.
because of course I didn't want to see her suffering either.
Right.
So, I think as people learn, as far as the paradigm, my mom was an example of that, because their generation believed that certain things were true and they didn't change. And even though my dad was a dentist, but he would go to these dental seminars and they would bring in medical doctors like Kenneth Cooper, who wrote the book Aerobics, which was amazing. I remember when he came home and told us all about his classes.
Wow.
And he came home and said, "Oh, I learned so many wonderful things from Dr. Cooper." So figure out that had to have been, I don't know, probably 40 years ago. And he said, one of the most important things he said was stop eating the whites. No white sugar, white bread, white flour, white pasta, because the whites are causing big problems in chronic illness. And, and the last thing he said to us, and I was in high school at the time, he said, all of these boxed cereals, it would be better to throw out the contents and eat the box for fiber. Well, that was a joke, it's supposed to be a joke. And
I
I'm
get it.
thinking, Dad, you lost it. I'm in high school. I'm thinking, what are you saying? But everything changed at our home then after he heard all of this. So the point is, that's not what he believed up until that point, but he heard a
He
doctor.
heard it.
He heard a doctor say, "This
He
is
was
what I'm seeing." He
listening.
was listening.
He
They
was
went,
open-minded
"Yep,
enough to take it for what it's worth, not for what he wanted it to be.
right." And
Right.
here's Dr. Kenneth Cooper. Last I saw on the internet, he was still active and healthy at 84 or
Right.
something, and I think he was still jogging. He was a runner. So, I think I remember them going for a physical every year, he and Mom, to Texas to see Dr. Cooper's clinic, and they did a very thorough physical there. So when people are given knowledge that's backed up by, you know,
Right.
evidence that it's working, that it's good, I mean, there's nothing like seeing your blood sugars normalize because you've changed how you're eating,
Mm-hmm.
and your energy improve and your sleep
Right.
improve. So I think it's a matter of, we always need to be open, and as Dr. Perlmutter wrote in his book at the end, he said, think of the things that we once believed. We used to have doctors be part of the ads for the cigarette industry. Okay, so there are all kinds of things we used to think were fine. Oh, they're fine, and then
Right.
we keep learning
Right.
new truth, and now we know the body is needing nutrients we do not have available to us in food, and we do need to supplement.
Right.
And if we do that, we help the body in its process of healing.
And people don't want to hear that, but they need to. People people don't want to hear that they have to take a little extra time out of their day. People don't want to hear that they have to buy extra supplements and spend more money on themselves and things like this. But it's not about what they want to hear. It's about what they need to hear. They need to hear the truth. And it's not always about what we want, because that's our small self.
Yeah. Well, I think everyone really in their hearts wants to have quality life. I think
Mhm.
everyone wants to have energy to live each day well.
Mhm.
I think we all want that. It's a matter of having the knowledge to know, oh, well, what different choices do I need to make? And sometimes I will tell my clients, you don't need to do this all at once. You won't do what we've written out on your plan sheet perfectly tomorrow. That's okay. But take those little steps, substitute this for this, increase your water, decrease your coffee, and then you'll have more energy to take the next step.
Correct.
So it's not going to happen overnight, but they feel so encouraged when they just see some change, and they can tell they are feeling better. and then that motivates them to go further,
Mm-hmm.
and then they come back, and sometimes they come back and say, I just I just need a little recharge now. I just need to get back on track again, and something might have happened in their life. But, I encourage them to just really listen and pay attention to what they're seeing in their body and feeling and noticing about energy and everything else, and even their mental state, even how
Right.
they feel mentally, emotionally. That's all tied in.
Mm-hmm.
And and when they see the improvement, then, like I said, they're more motivated,
Correct.
then they have more energy too,
Mm-hmm.
and to go and
Mm-hmm.
do and continue in the same path.
Right. So Val, we are fortunate to have you in our community. Seriously, thank you for all the work that you do and all the education that you provide.
Well, thank you for having me here, and thank you, Connor, for what you do to encourage people with their physical activity, which is so important. It's an integrative part of this wellness,
Mm-hmm.
and I appreciate that very much.
Absolutely. It's all about finding freedom in our lives. Freedom to live our best life. We only get
We
one.
only get one.
So, making the most of it. How can people find you? How can people learn more? How can they contact you to learn more about what we've talked about today?
Well, our website is a great resource. All our information is on there. Even links to other Dr. Brownstein's website, so many other sources of information are there on the website. The
Mm-hmm.
basics are there. Anyone is welcome to come and borrow, as I said, books from our lending library. We lend out our books for a week, and they can find out any information they need on the internet. Wellness Center Marquette. Center is spelled with an R-E, not an E-R. So,
Centra. Centra.
yeah, the French spelling. Wellness Center Marquette. And people call with questions sometimes. It's
Mm-hmm.
good. We have enough information there that it will empower people to take better charge of their health, and
And take
know what
action.
questions they might want to pursue that they don't have enough knowledge on, what they might want to talk with their doctors about, and then what part they have to play. I love that the people who come are so proactive. They come not saying,
Mm-hmm.
how can you fix me up? And I said, no, they're saying, what can I do? I want to feel well again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel well now. And that's exciting, because usually they come back in a month and there are big changes. And sometimes they don't need to come back again, which is great. You
It's
know,
a beautiful thing.
it's a beautiful thing.
Well, thank you for sharing today.
You are
And
welcome.
we will catch up down the road.
All
Until
right.
next time, guys.
Thanks for having me, Connor.
Ride the waves, dude.